Good evening. How are you this evening, or good afternoon, I should say. How are you this afternoon? Welcome. If you want to come down forward, normally we'd be down there talking, but Theron may demonstrate and do some things at the piano. So if you want to come down so that you're a little bit closer, that'd be great. You don't have to, just if you want to. Like I said, just because we're farther away from you than we would normally be. Welcome to this year's Chautauqua Jazz Week. We're really excited to have in the lineup. If you haven't seen already in the newspaper or on the website, today we're honoring the Blue Note legacy with Theron Brown. Tomorrow, Brazilian jazz and the history of Brazilian jazz with Maggie Green. The history of the organ used in jazz with the art of the organ with Bobby Floyd on Thursday. And then Emmett Cohen his trio tour that he's on right now is on Friday. So it's actually a pretty heavy keyboard week. So if you like piano, you will not leave on Saturday or Friday night feeling like you haven't heard a piano. So I'm really excited to introduce for our artist conversation today, Mr. Theron Brown, who is a pianist, composer, producer, educator, performer, and I can even say an actor, motion screen picture actor. Born in Zanesville, and I'll ask him a little bit to bring us through his background, but did come through the interest of the church. His dad was a pastor, and so he was introduced through music through the church. And then as originally started playing as a drummer, but then was inspired to play violin and piano, and then that piano interest inspired through Thelonious Monk, led him to then start to study jazz and I would say other genres of music too, which I'm sure you'll share with us. Going to the University of Akron, Kent State, and now is actually a professor, one of the two professors leading the jazz area at University of Akron. I joked about motion picture, but he did have a pivotal moment because he did play the young Herbie Hancock. If anyone saw Don Cheadle's Miles Ahead movie about the life of, a very specific part of Miles's life, this was the young Herbie Hancock in the movie right here, Mr. Theron Brown. Yes? And Theron has worked across the globe. And not just in the jazz genre specifically, but has played from the Cleveland Orchestra through Snarky Puppy, has played on some incredible world stages, concert halls and festival stages, and in 2019 released his EP. In 2024, Spirit Fruit was a solo piano album that he released, and then just this past November, right, was his most recent album, Mr. Magnetic. So without further ado, we're going to learn more about Theron today. Please welcome Mr. Theron Brown.
Wow, that was, can we give Michael a round of applause for that bio? You did all that from memory.
I know you. I follow you.
That was
I've
incredible.
known you for a while. And what I didn't say is this is actually one of the nicest and kindest people in the industry right here, too. And I mean that as well. So I mentioned that you did start out your interest in the church, but tell us how you got started in your whole music endeavors.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know this about me, but I actually had some time playing viola. You know how they give everybody a opportunity to pick an instrument in, like, was it fourth grade? I think, yeah. And I checked out the cello and the bass because they were bigger instruments, and we didn't have a car that size to tote those instruments home. So all the violins were taken up, and I got the viola, which, if you know anything about viola, it's the best instrument because we have all the coolest harmony in there. So fast forward to high school, my senior year, we had this thing at Zanesville High School called String Fling. And before, I would get on the piano and just mess around while everybody was warming up, and I would just play some songs. And there was a gentleman that played cello. He came over to me, and he was like, wow, you're playing some really cool stuff. And mind you, I didn't have any training. I just played by ear, learned at my father's church. And he was like, have you ever checked out jazz before? I was like, no. In the back of my head, I was like, that's the devil's music. I only play gospel. You know? So, needless to say, the next day he brought me a Thelonious Monk fake book, if you will, and it basically had a little biography in the beginning and all of his tunes and songs, compositions that he wrote. And he also, which was the most important part, he gave me a CD and an album to go with it. And I played it in my mom's car, and instantly I could I understood what was happening, but I didn't. So I was attracted to it. I was like, there's a lot of similarities between jazz and gospel music. What really got me was when I read Thelonious Monk's biography, and I found out that he actually traveled with his father to tent revivals and things like that as a church musician. So I was like, you know what, it might be okay for me. Hopefully they don't deem me a sinner or something because I'm jazzing and all that stuff. But that's how I got into this genre of music, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's brought so much joy and a lot of cool things my way.
So something that's cool, Matt Charbonneau, our director of performing arts, is also a bass player. And so the two of them were connecting a few minutes ago about Matt used to play on gigs with Theron. So what started your first gigging experiences and getting into that?
Boy, this is a story I don't tell often either. But when I first moved here, or to Akron rather, to study, they would tell you to just go out and sit in at different places and, try to learn kind of by just, by the street, I guess. Street learning, basically. That's part of the education, too, just going out and playing with folks. And there's a lot of different kind of arms that stem from the scene. You have your blues, you got your country, you got your wedding band scene. So my first actual gig outside of church was playing with the Howard Street Blues Band in Akron, Ohio. And this was a legendary band, actually. Of course, I'm green. I'm just this closed-minded church boy that, I don't know. So my first gig was at this little dive bar on Portage Lakes. And this is in 2005, so people were still smoking inside. Right?
Yeah, I remember those days.
That existed. So I remember, I was walking here. Okay, I see why my parents didn't want me to go down this road. I'm in a bar. They're smoking all this stuff. But I remember that gig. I learned a lot. I at least learned how to play the blues, which is the roots of American music. If you're an American, you know what the blues is. You hear that sound. So being able to get that as a foundation, and then, other gig opportunities just kind of started opening up by my name getting thrown around, oh yeah, there's a new piano player in town. Little did they know I didn't know anything. Like I was saying earlier, I'd carry my little books around so that I could, if they called a song I didn't know, I'd look it up real quick and try my best, basically.
So you go from these little books that you're carrying around trying to play to actually now writing music that's going into books. Yeah. What inspired you to start composing music?
That was a situation where I think I got kind of thrown into it. At first, it was an exercise at school. In class, you have to write certain little excerpts or etudes for yourself. And then after studying a lot of music, what really got me into it was the collaboration with other disciplines, so dance, vocalists, things like that. I think the very first bigger production that I did collaboration was in school with the theater department. Then shift to 2000, maybe 11-ish, 12, no, it had to be 14, 2014. I got a call from, and this is a big artist, visual guy, Nick Cave. And at the time, I had no clue who it was. No clue. This was a huge artist, world known. And he's coming into the Akron Art Museum. He's like, yeah, I want you to produce music for the Sound Suits, which was the show at the time. You remember that? Yeah, right. Yes. They're really outlandish, too, if I could describe. They're like these two human beings wearing a big horse suit. And yes, somebody is the rear and somebody is the front. And they move around and they dance, and there are all these colors, and there's maybe 50 artists wearing them. It's a really big show. But once we did that, And actually, some of the guys in my band that you'll see tonight were a part of that, just to show you how long we've been doing these things together. Once I did that, I caught the bug, and I've just been doing a lot of writing for things that are outside of the box, that are very collaborative. Right now, the show that I'm working on now is the biggest one that I've done. It's called the Remember Balloons. And stop me if I'm going to. Okay. It's called the Remember Balloons, and it's based off of a children's book that helps families and kids have a discussion around the topic of Alzheimer's and dementia and how to cope with that in a way. And the example is like our memories are held in these balloons, and sometimes they float away. Well, it's our job to get those stories and memories and hold on to them and pass them on. So it's got dance in it. It's got a chamber orchestra with strings and tuba and all kinds of stuff, and animation on the screen. So it's almost like I'm learning as I go, and we're just adding more and more components and elements to how I write and my style and stuff.
I'm only smiling because right now, I was music director for Maureen for 12 years, and she recently retired, a couple years ago because of her Alzheimer's, but still very active. If we're doing music, everything comes back, and as soon as the music stops, it goes. So a lot of music that we use, but I'm just smiling because her mission is to figure out how kids can understand Alzheimer's with their families. So this is, we didn't plan this, by the way. This is just like one of those moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, Theron.
Yeah. It's been really touching. We're premiering it. It's already been traveling the nation, but we're doing our first live show with the full orchestra and everything on June 20th.
Where will that be?
At E.J. Thomas Hall in Akron.
Nice, in Akron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what specific things, when you compose music, what kind of elements, are there certain elements or stylistic things that you find yourself attracted to or drifting towards when you write? Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I think for more of the things that I'm involved in with collaborations, I'm more so trying to match and meet them in the middle so that the full picture can be realized. Now, when I'm writing things for my own project, it's more from a spiritual place. I think now I'd like to affect people with my music and allow them to think of, use their imaginations, creativity to just define what they think of the music, basically. So for instance, Spirit Fruit, which is my solo piano album that I came out with, it's based around the fruit of the Spirit, which is found in the Bible, Galatians. And it talks about love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, kindness, all things that the world needs right now. And I put that out kind of vulnerable. First of all, it's solo piano. That's like basically standing up here with no clothes on, So it took a lot to do that, but also for me to say, hey, this is what I stand for, this is what I'm about, and I'm allowing you to figure out how you can acquire those things and put them in your life and also put them out. So I think that's my reasoning for writing now.
So you talk about solo piano, and it just so happens we had a piano up here.
Oh, look at that.
I know, it's just amazing. I don't know if any would be interested, but I would be interested in hearing if you would just play one of your compositions for us.
Oh,
Tell us what
sure.
it is, and then go ahead and share a little bit of playing for us.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear him play or no?
Okay,
Good.
Okay, beautiful. This song is actually the first track off of my album, Mr. Magnetic. It's entitled Eternal Grace.
Tell us a little bit the story behind that.
Yeah, so I wrote that song really long. It's actually, well, it's the first song that I wrote. And this was probably back in 2006. Yeah, so I was a sophomore at the University of Akron. And there were parts that, like, the second half were refined and added later, but it has that gospel undertone, of course. Yeah, right, you can hear it. And then there's that little bit of jazz element with the improvising, of course. But again, I think it came from a place of me thinking about the Hammond B3 organ. You talked about Bobby Floyd. That's what I used to play in church. I grew up apostolic, and the Hammond B3 was a big part of it. And even though they have black and white keys, just like the piano, it's a little bit different because it doesn't have sustain pedals. So the way I wrote the chords and kind of even the voicings are really organ gospel voicings and stuff, which I find a lot of people are attracted to that. And it's a sound that's familiar, but, that's, I think, still being discovered.
Do you, we talked a little bit about your compositional, but your whole career is what I always say is what now, for a successful musician in the 21st century, multifaceted, and you are definitely an example of that. You talked about the composition and the writing for other people as well as yourself, but then also teaching, being a professor. Yeah. I know you have weeks where you are teaching in the classroom, you are going to a studio to record, you're playing a gig as a sideman, and then traveling out on the weekend to be your own solo artist or featured artist. Talk a little bit about how you manage, and what's a day in the life of Theron Brown, or a week in the life of Theron Brown, because that is the new musician. It's very, very few people now I play trumpet and that's all I do. Right. So you are, to me, one of the best examples of what musicians are today in the 21st century. Kind of give us a snapshot of what you're doing outside of composing.
Yeah. So, for instance, this morning I had to make an appearance at a community-focused group organization that deals with homelessness in Akron. And you would think that there's no reason for an artist to be there, but when you think about artists, it's very community-oriented. We get to touch certain people that might not make it to other things. And a lot of times I have politicians hitting me up saying, hey, can you say something at the gig? Because they know, certain people they can't reach. So, but I do find myself very involved in community engagement. I serve on a ton of boards, especially ones that deal with music in the University of Akron, also music venues in Akron.
I will just interject. You did found and start and manage and produce the Rubber City Jazz Festival now in Akron.
That's true.
And yes.
We know some folks.
Is it 5 years now?
Oh my gosh, it's been 11.
11
years?
years?
This is going to be the 11th year. Yeah, all this stuff we're talking about is making me tired.
Wow.
How did we? Yeah,
11 years ago? Oh my gosh. Okay.
Crazy.
Now it just makes me feel much older.
Same here. But yeah, really, really getting involved with community. The other thing that people don't see is when you're teaching, and I know you know this, students come with so much more than just wanting to know the piano. There, a lot of times you'll find students that just need somebody to talk to, or it could be anything. That they're dealing with issues just like we are, guidance in life. I've even had a young man come and talk about girlfriend issues. I'm like, okay, we didn't touch the piano, but I guess we needed to get through it. And then some of the other things I do, yes, traveling is a lot. I was just in San Diego for a release show for Chanel Johns, who you should check out. You're hip to her? So I got to record on her album, and we did the release show out there. And I'm going to Mexico at the end of this month with her too, so that'll be fun. But yeah, here's the kicker. I have a wife and 3 small children. And that's where it gets complicated. Everything else is fine. I can deal with that. But now my kids, they're 8. My oldest son, Theron Jr., is 8. Tegan, my daughter, is 6. And my youngest son, Thaddeus, is 5. Yeah. That's when you do that.
This makes me feel old because when I met you, you only had one kid.
Yes. So, and they're starting to get active in things too. But yeah, a day in the life of me is a lot of connecting with people. I'm constantly on my email. There's a lot of things that I'm part of that just help keep the ball rolling. And I think more musicians are headed to that direction. You know, the New York thing is attractive, but now I think they're starting to see that it's about your drive, and if you can, wherever you're at, you can make a community of people that will support. The whole build it, they will come thing is true, but also I'm starting to see other musicians where I was the young whippersnapper in 2005. Now I'm a little older, and what we have established is working. There's more youth coming up, and they're starting to get into these leadership positions. And yeah, it's just at this point, I'm just trying to help maintain the health of the scene and continue to add to it.
It's interesting because the younger musicians today actually have and maybe you've seen this too, have this really, I would say, profound interest in historical music, yes. Where we were assigned to it and then learned to love it. They're finding it and bringing it in before I can even assign it. And I was on this big band tour in May, and I was telling the audiences in this one section about Spotify. Mm-hmm. It tells you your age, your average age, by what you listen to.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
Are you serious?
Yes, it's sad. But anyways, so my students were like, "What do you think your average age is?" I'm like,
"Oh, no,
oh
that's
gosh,
not right."
I don't know. So my average age was 61. I was like, well, that's not too bad. I mean, because I do listen to a lot of older recordings. I love to listen to but their average age was 83. Yes, because they were going back to the old, like the original Billie Holiday recordings and a lot of those like early 1940s and 50s recordings. So I told them I would introduce them to some younger artists so they can lower their average age down. But anyways, but there is this profound interest, and it's kind of fun to see that the younger generation, which sometimes they don't get a lot of flowers for being a younger generation, but they do have this real interest, particularly in jazz coming up, which I'm finding to be really exciting.
Yeah, I think one of the artists, and I see a few young people out there, is it Leve.
Leve. Oh, Leve.
There we go.
Yes.
Yes. She's kind of leading the charge
she is.
For the younger folks. And then Lady Gaga had a stint, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, with
well, the whole Tony Bennett
thing. That was a wave, but Leve's really.
What's weird is like when you and I were younger, Tony Bennett was on MTV. He was doing those concerts on MTV, and we're like, who's this guy? But then the thing is, we were all watching it.
You're right. You're exactly right.
So now Lady Gaga, you know what I mean? Like it is. It's interesting to see how that changes. But so this leads me into a question, speaking of younger generations. How did you get chosen to be the younger generation of Herbie Hancock in the movie? Actor was not something on your radar, I'm assuming.
No. So this is a question I get a lot. I don't know how I got that gig. At the time, I just stopped touring with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. You guys know who they are? Okay.
That adds to the 83 average.
Yeah. So yeah, mine would be pretty old too. But I think from that tour took me a lot of places, and I remember just getting a call from I don't even know what they're called, the people that call the actors to see if they're interested. I let it go to voicemail because I didn't recognize the number, and then I listened to it, and they're like, "Hi, yes, we're calling for Theron Brown, and we have this role that we'd like you to try out for as Herbie Hancock in this new Miles Davis movie starring Don Cheadle." Okay, well, one of my buddies are playing the prank on me now because this couldn't be real. And at the time, me and my wife were just dating. So, and we had a trip planned to go to Myrtle Beach with my family. It was a vacation thing. They wanted me to come the next week to audition. Yeah, it was and we auditioned in Cincinnati. So I had to talk to her first and make her believe that this was actually true and a potential. And we ended up cutting the trip short, and we took our trip to Cincinnati, and I auditioned, and I didn't hear anything back from weeks, and then out of nowhere I got the call that I got the part, right? And they filmed it in Cincinnati, New York, and LA. Cincinnati because it looked like Harlem at that time, and I think it was cheaper too. Taxes to film in Ohio is a lot cheaper. That's probably really what it was. So I did the movie. It was so fun too. I got to hang with Cheadle. You know, we're in the scenes together. Robert Glasper was there. He was kind of our musician coach. And here's the cool thing is Cheadle stayed in character the whole time. And if you know who Miles Davis was, he was very cold and kind of just to himself. So, you know, Cheadle's like from here to here. He's literally standing there, and I'm like, well, I gotta say something. Like, hey, Mr. Cheadle, thanks for having me on this. And he just looked at me and then looked away. And I kept to myself maybe for another 2 days. I was just like, okay, maybe I just won't talk to him. That's how stars are or whatever. And then I was telling one of the workers on the side, and they was like, oh no, he's staying in character. He won't break character like at all while he's here. And then at the end of our shooting for that week, he did end up coming to me. He was like, hey man, I'm sorry. I'm really not an asshole, basically. I was like, okay. He gave me a hug and everything. I was like, okay, cool. You know, but anytime he'd give me instructions, he would talk in that raspy, hey, Herbie. You know, so I felt like I was Herbie. I was like, geez, sorry you went through that. You know, one more thing. Herbie Hancock was at Severance Hall in November. Yeah, it was his last year. Yeah, a week before my Mr. Magnetic release, and I get a call like, hey, we got some tickets. You want to come up and watch? And I was like, yeah, duh. This is my hero. And I've never met Herbie before. And they ended up taking me backstage, and I met him, and he remembered me from the movie, and he told me I did a good job. So that felt good 10 years later, right? It was a good time.
I'll share this because you're a Herbie fan, and that's your hero. I was producing the Jazz Network out in San Diego, and Herbie was the spokesperson that year. So he and I got into this elevator, and we're going up to where we were going in the resort, and a bunch of these kids that were from a jazz band high school came in, and all of them literally their mouths dropped when they saw it was Herbie Hancock, and immediately, and we were in the back. It's one of those big elevators with the glass. Yeah. So Herbie and I were in the back, and they were all in the elevator, and they all turned their back and like huddled and looked at each other, and like they were all mouthing, And so anyways, we get to like whatever floor, like 5, 6 floors up, and so we're like, excuse us, we have to get off. So we get off. Herbie turned around and looked at him. He said, it was so nice talking with all of you.
Oh, that's great. That's good.
So
wow.
just a profound guy. I just had to share that story with you because I thought it was funny.
So you got to spend some time with
not musically, just production-wise. Yeah.
That's
but
cool,
very
man.
cool guy. And then we brought him to Jazz Tri-C.
Yes.
4 years ago, 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it was my last year there. So
that's right.
Yeah. So since you played, this is a good segue. Since you played the young Herbie, and Herbie was also influenced obviously by Miles, but also by the Blue Note album, as were so many. We were talking. If you don't know what the Blue Note album is, Theron's going to play a tribute to his influences from the Blue Note album. But it started actually in late 30s, early 40s. Alfred Lyon was a producer that just had this vision that instead of telling the artist what to record, he wanted to give a venue or a space for them to actually record their artistry and what they want to do. He wanted freedom and flexibility for the artists to do what they wanted to do. And then he brought in Rudy Van Gelder, who was this mastermind of sound. and created this way of recording and capturing these artists in a way that really had this very live presence on these albums. If you listen to the Blue Note albums, I know there's some kids here, and their record is kind of like a round-looking thing that you'd put, and I'm just joking, but there was a hiss that you would hear on the Blue Note that was even more prevalent than the hiss that you would hear on others, and it was because it was actually the way that he, and the type of microphones that he was using, that was actually the air movement moving through the microphones, because he wanted everything to be so precise and capturing what the artist, but giving that freedom and flexibility. So the Blue Note label, I think, arguably changed the world for jazz and brought jazz into the masses in a way that was cool. I mean, it had that kind of cool vibe to it in both the vision of what the albums looked like, but the freedom of what the artists were able to do, try out. I mean, think of all the artists that were on the Blue Note label. I mean, we could list them and be here. I told Theron, I said, we really could have done a Blue Note festival and spend the whole week just different parts of the Blue Note album. What was it? What will we hear tonight? What has inspired you about the Blue Note label and about this tribute that we'll hear? Because, like I said, thousands of artists were affected by the Blue Note label. Yeah. But what will we hear tonight? What's influenced you about the Blue Note label?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think, like you said earlier, there was a quote from somebody like, if you're a jazz legend, you probably had a deal with Blue Note.
Yeah, the quote was something about if you're a jazz artist where the word legend is attached to you, at some point you had to walk through the door and work at Blue Note.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I feel the same, that if you say you're a jazz musician, you had to spend time with that label, because all of the gems are there, and the players, it's like a school within itself. My first introduction to Blue Note was in 2005 when I first started at the University of Akron. Back then, because I didn't have any money, I'd have to go to the library and get the albums. Don't tell anybody this. Put them on my computer, burn them. Yeah, and then I take them back to the library. Yeah. Well. Hey, I'm here now, okay?
Like, you now lead the jazz program at University of Akron. I think you're good.
I buy my records now. But that was, kind of one of those things where I was hungry and couldn't wait for the next record or to get that album. But I remember when I got Speak No Evil, and I could hear that sound you were describing. It's like, man, this is jazz. This is the feeling you get. And I listened to it on the way up here, actually, just out of nostalgia, front to back. And that was the only CD I had in my car for maybe a year. And then, well, not the only one. There were others that I added, but the one that I played, like, constantly. The next one was Blue Train, John Coltrane. And then Herbie Hancock with Imperial Isles. Yeah, which that was a heavy record. But Herbie's always been in my life, and he's all over those Blue Note records. Speak No Evil, I transcribed like at least 2 of his solos from that album alone. Blue Note, going through the Coltrane era, you got Moment's Notice and Blue Train, Locomotion, all them things. And just, every jazz musician, if you call yourself that, you can't really skip listening to those. Not even transcribe, like, it doesn't matter if you transcribe them or even if you enjoy them, but you gotta check out some Blue Note records, and it's just a wealth of information. Seeing how some of the players are integrated differently too is something that's very interesting.
Yeah, that's one thing. If you, especially for some of our younger students who are here, listen to the albums, but look and see who's on the albums. Because I remember the one time listening to the album, I'm like, man, the bass player sounds exactly like so and so, and it was the same bass player, just different artists, different albums. Yep. But they all worked so closely together. Mm-hmm. What will we hear tonight? What are some of the tributes you'll do tonight to some of the Blue Note albums?
Yeah, so I had a lot of influences. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, you all familiar with them? They were very pivotal, and I call Art Blakey a school in himself, just like Miles Davis. How so many players like went through his band. Art Blakey was the same thing. You know, Lee Morgan, Wayne, all the cats played with them. So one of the albums I really liked was Mosaic. We're going to do Down Under from there. Yeah. Horace Silver played a big role in my life. He had a lot of that gospel sound too, and just he had a big influence on jazz piano and the rhythmic. You know, he had a strength to his playing on the piano. So I might do a solo piece of his too, Strolling, if you're familiar with that. And then I think we'll do something from Pursuit of the 27th Man, Gregory. Let's see, what else are we doing? Well, we're doing Cantaloupe Island, which is a funky Herbie Hancock tune. That'll be fun.
You can't not do it at Blue Note without that one.
Yeah. So we kind of got a dance floor if y'all feel like wiggling around, you know. I gotta say this is a joke, but I'm a part of a dance group. You may have heard of them, the CDOA, Chair Dancers of America. Just kind of wiggle in your seat if there's no room in the aisles, right? Yeah, so that'll be a fun one that we'll get a little funky on. Yeah, Speak No Evil from that record. So, yeah, we have some fun stuff.
This is great. Because we're coming close to our time, I have a series of questions for you.
Sure.
So you can just give them. I'll ask you just give the one note answer, one word answer, or if there's a story behind it. But here's the fast round of questions,
Okay.
and then I'll turn it over to the audience. So this is very important questions, by the way. So I mean, this tells us deeply who you are. It's in the
my gosh.
spirit of the Stephen Colbert world, right? Who was a huge fan of all of our music that we all do. Okay, so are you a coffee or tea drinker?
Coffee. Yes.
Favorite Duke Ellington tune?
Oh, that's not fair.
You gotta pick one.
Billy Strayhorn wrote them all anyway. Wasn't expecting that one up.
That was good. That was good.
I'm going to say take the A Train.
Okay,
Because I love
okay.
it.
What was your first album? I think you talked about listening to it, but you didn't tell us what it was.
Yeah, it was a compilation Thelonious Monk album. It just had like a lot of his hits from over the years.
It did have a blue cover on the front of it.
Yes. Yeah, I think
And like
so.
by the green writing or something like.
It was a 2-disc?
Yes,
That's
I
the
think
one.
I had the same one.
That's
I
the
think I
one.
had the same one. Mhm.
Really good.
What was your first concert you ever attended?
The first concert I ever attended?
Well, the one you remember.
Well, I guess I'd have to say probably the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's my earliest memory.
Did you ever think you'd play with them when you were listening?
No, not at all. And I remember Jack Shantz was over the program then. He's an awesome trumpet player. You know Jack Shantz. There you go, from Orville, yes. His family had the organ company and all that, yeah. Jack was the leader of the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra during
for
those
about 10
years.
years, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when Sean Jones came on, and Jack would always tell me, he was like, if you get in the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra, you've done good for yourself. Because what that meant is that I could improvise, I could read well, and I could play with others. Mm-hmm. It's all he wanted for me. And was I ready? No, but Sean Jones came in town, and he ended up getting me in the band, which I really needed at that time. So, yeah, I think... No, I remember hitting up all my buddies like, hey, I'm on the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra gig. Like, you guys should come up and hang. You know?
All right, last question. Apples or oranges?
Tangerines?
That works.
That's
That works.
what
It's the
my
orange
kids
family.
eat those little cuties.
Yeah.
And things.
I'm going to turn it over. If any of you have questions, I'll come down so Theron can hear. But if you have questions for Theron, I'll come down and just raise your hand and I'll come over to you.
What was your audition piece for Herbie Hancock?
Oh, really good question. I think I played. I can't remember the name tag, but I know the melody.
Green Dolphin Street.
Dolphin Street, yes, on Green Dolphin Street. And I did play one of his tunes. I think it was actually Cantaloupe. I think it was Cantaloupe Island, actually. And he did listen to the stuff. He had to check out our videos and see how we looked and all that. So, and when I first met Herbie, and there's a video of us, we just stood there. And once I told him that I played him in the movie, he looked at me for at least like 5 seconds. Most awkward thing ever. But I think he was saying like, yeah, okay, this makes sense. Yeah.
As a young person going into the jazz field, what do you think the most important thing to keep in mind is?
Boy, I get one shot at changing a child's life, and I can't ruin it. Just one thing? No. Have fun. That's the main thing, and be authentic, be yourself. Because there's plenty of people around to help you, but developing your sound and your voice, just like, I have kind of like a nasally voice, but I can't change that, right? And I'm comfortable with it. It doesn't stop me from talking. So the same thing when you're working out on what instrument do you play? Your voice, there you go. Lean into it, own it, right? And know that we need it. All the theory and stuff, that'll come, all the knowing chord changes or how to read music. That stuff's the easy part. I think the hard part is staying true to yourself and keeping good folks around you.
Okay, other questions? I'll come around this way.
This isn't really a question, it's just something I wanted to share. Herbie Hancock has a jazz piano competition in New York, and we got to attend it several years ago. It was at the Perlman Center, which is down by Ground Zero, and he had a whole host of who's who of jazz musicians that performed in between the competition. Folks, it was just an amazing experience.
Yeah. Anything he's curating or he's involved in is just extravagant. And he just started the whole, International Jazz Day, which we just
April 30th.
Past, April 30th. Yeah.
How many years have you been a jazz musician?
Yeah. So, 2000, I guess 20 years, 21 years. Yeah. Jazz musician. Yeah, I won't go there. That was a good question, man. Yeah, 21 years. Making me feel old.
What other styles have you crossed over? You talked a little bit about it in your
Yeah.
composition, but what other styles, playing-wise or performing-wise, do you cross over a lot?
Yeah, definitely, of course, gospel, but R&B, rock, blues, and all the subcategories that go along with those. Like when you think of blues, for this piece that I've written, the Remember Balloons, it takes place in Louisiana, kind of anywhere between 20s and 40s. So we kind of cover Delta blues. We got some Chicago shuffle in there. And then I am a classical musician as well. I got my master's in piano performance, and I had to exercise that a couple years ago when I played Rhapsody in Blue. Makes me feel funny just saying it. But that's probably the one of the hardest times I worked to learn that piece. And don't ask me to play, because if you had a gun to my head, I couldn't even play the first note. But it was a lot of fun. I got to play that with the Akron Symphony and at E.J. Thomas Hall. Yeah, so all the styles.
If there's no other questions, I'm going to ask, would you do one more song for us?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
One of your compositions or something that has inspired you?
Yeah, let me think here. Well, one of the first ballads that I learned was "You Go to My Head." Oh, gosh. Yeah, I'll play that for you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, Make sure to check out tonight's concert, 8 p.m., Theron Brown Quintet, featuring Tommy Lehman on trumpet, Sam Ross, one of your students on saxophone, Zaire Darden, who's been here several times on drums, and who's playing bass? Oh, George Delancey will be here on bass. So yes, this is a concert you will not want to miss. So we'll hope to see you all back at 8 o'clock, and thank you for joining us today. Theron Brown, ladies and gentlemen.